Welcome back to my YouTube channel. This is Pastor Frank DeMora with the End Times Research Ministry, BibleProphecyMan.com, two of my websites, and of course I'm doing the YouTube videos as well, where I connect the dots between Bible prophecy and current events. Earlier today, I made a 5-minute video about the deal of the century announcement that President Donald Trump was going to make today and has now already made. In that 5-minute video that I made earlier, I said that I wanted to wait to see what was unveiled in that plan, and then I would come back and connect the dots between what was in the plan and what the Bible has to say, and what we should expect according to what the Bible says in relation to the future events in the Bible prophecies. So please just watch that 5-minute video again if you haven't already seen it, and then I'm going to connect the dots, knowing now what was unveiled in that deal of the century peace plan. Now, because the statements were made almost identical to what we see in the prophecy, let me just show you this. In case you didn't see that 5-minute video, I'm going to show it to you again right here. And if you did see it, you could skip right over that 5 minutes and then go right into what I'm going to be talking about now. But in that video, I talked about Thessalonians chapter 5, verses 1 through 3, when they shall call peace and safety. I'm going to play a clip almost at the end of the deal of the century announcement today to show you that the warning of the call for peace and safety was heard today in that announcement. Watch this.
God bless America. May God bless Israel. And may God bless us all with security, prosperity, and peace.
Hi everyone, Pastor Frank here. Very briefly today, I want to cover the call for peace and safety, and also a couple of other scriptures for you, because the news is very important today. The deal of the century is going to be announced by President Donald Trump. He has the Israeli President Benjamin Netanyahu with him. They're going to be announcing that probably within a half an hour. So let me get right to the heart of the matter, because this is what I'm looking for from what we see of this deal of the century. The prophet told us in 1 Thessalonians chapter 5, verses 1 through 3, listen to what he says. But of the times and the seasons, brethren, ye have no need that I write unto you, for yourselves know perfectly that that day of the Lord so cometh as a thief in the night. For when they shall say, get this, peace and safety, then sudden destruction cometh upon them as travail upon a woman with child. So, when we hear Israel calling for peace and safety, what's going to happen? Well, we're told sudden destructions are going to be coming. It doesn't say that there's going to be this great peace. It says sudden destruction, which means obviously war. Now keep that in mind, because Israel's been calling for peace and safety since 1976, and we're getting down to the final peace talks, the deal of the century. And there's news today that says if the Palestinians don't accept it, it's over. So since we don't know what's in that peace plan, the deal of the century, we're going to have to wait. But what we do know is from the prophecy that it looks like there's going to be war. And we see right now that the Palestinians have already called for the absence of restraining themselves against the Israelis because of this deal of the century. We've also seen, like in the news today that you're looking at, IDF to reinforce troops in Jordan Valley ahead of the deal of the century, because they believe that there's going to be problems, because supposedly, of course we're going to find out, that the Jordan Valley is going to be taken over by the Israelis from the deal of the century. And of course this is going to have a huge effect on what happens with the Jordanians and the Israelis, their friendship that is very, very brittle at this particular time. So we're going to listen to the President talk with the Prime Minister of Israel, see what they say, see what's in it, because what's in it is going to be very, very important to Bible prophecy, whether it's fulfilling Bible prophecy or it doesn't fulfill Bible prophecy.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Today, Israel takes a big step towards peace. Young people across the Middle East are ready for a more hopeful future, and governments throughout the region are realizing that terrorism and Islamic extremism are everyone's common enemy. Yesterday, I had the pleasure of meeting with both the Prime Minister of Israel and a man that's working very hard to become the Prime Minister of Israel in the longest-running election of all time, Benny Gantz of the Blue and White Party. And both leaders joined me to express their support for this effort, proving that the state of Israel looking for peace, and that peace transcends politics by any measure, unmeasurable. That's what they want. On my first trip overseas as president, I visited the Holy Land of Israel. I was deeply moved and amazed by what this small country had achieved in the face of overwhelming odds and never-ending threats. The state of Israel comprises only a minuscule amount of land in the Middle East, and yet it has become a thriving center of democracy, innovation, culture, and commerce. Israel is a light unto the world. The hearts and history of our people are woven together. The land of Israel is an ancient home, a sacred place of worship, and a solemn promise to the Jewish people that we will never again repeat history's darkest hour. During my trip to Israel, I also met with Palestinian President Abbas in Bethlehem. I was saddened by the fate of the Palestinian people. They deserve a far better life. They deserve the chance to achieve their extraordinary potential. Palestinians have been trapped in a cycle of terrorism, poverty, and violence, exploited by those seeking to use them as pawns to advance terrorism and extremism. I returned from my visit determined to find a constructive path, and it's got to be a very powerful path forward in the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. To further this effort, I also met with President Abbas at the White House. Forging peace between Israelis and Palestinians may be the most difficult challenge of all. All prior administrations from President Lyndon Johnson have tried and bitterly failed. But I was not elected to do small things or shy away from big problems. It's been a long and very arduous process to arrive at this moment. On Sunday, I delivered to Prime Minister Netanyahu my vision for peace, prosperity, and a brighter future for Israelis and Palestinians. This vision for peace is fundamentally different from past proposals. In the past, even the most well-intentioned plans were light on factual details and heavy on conceptual frameworks. By contrast, our plan is 80 pages and is the most detailed proposal ever put forward by far. As I have seen throughout my long career as a deal maker, complex problems require nuanced, fact-based remedies. That is why our proposal provides precise technical solutions to make Israelis, Palestinians, and the region safer and much more prosperous. My vision presents a win-win opportunity for both sides, a realistic two-state solution that resolves the risk of Palestinian statehood to Israel's security. Today, Israel has taken a giant step toward peace. Yesterday, Prime Minister Netanyahu informed me that he is willing to endorse the vision as the basis for direct negotiations, and I will say the general also endorsed and very strongly with the Palestinians a historic breakthrough. And likewise, we have really a situation having to do with a race that is taking place right now. It will end, and we have the support, and it's very important to say this, of both parties and almost all people in Israel. They want peace, and they want peace badly.
So I'm going to stop it there just for 1 second, just to remind you that the scriptures about calling for peace, that part of it, and safety, you heard Israel is calling for peace. It isn't a coincidence. This was told many, many years ago. I'll keep interrupting this tape to connect the dots between the prophecies and what's taking place currently. Very, very important, though, the call for peace and safety.
This is the first time Israel has authorized the release of a conceptual map illustrating the territorial compromises it's willing to make for the cause of peace, and they've gone a long way.
I want to halt the tape again right there to show you a map of what this breakdown of land will look like, and making essentially that two-state that they're hoping to make. You'll see the line right here that he drew right here to show this is the territory that the Palestinians will be given if they in fact go along with this new century deal.
This is an unprecedented and highly significant development. Mr. Prime Minister, thank you for having the courage to take this bold step forward. Bibi, we have a lot of powerful people in this room, a lot of the people that can help make it work, so that's quite a thunderous applause. Thank you very much. Thank you. We will form a joint committee with Israel to convert the conceptual map into a more detailed and calibrated rendering so that recognition can be immediately achieved. We will also work to create a contiguous territory within the future Palestinian state for when the conditions for statehood are met, including the firm rejection of terrorism.
I'm going to stop the tape right there. Considering the fact that the prophecy in Thessalonians, which says the call for peace and safety, and then sudden destruction, look at the reaction of the Palestinian leader, Abbas. You'll see the headline here. This came out by ynetnews.com. And it says, Abbas calls for popular resistance to prevent peace plan. And according to the article, it says, during the closed-door meeting with Fatah, which is the party that President Abbas is the head of, the leadership on Monday, Palestinian Authority President Mahmoud Abbas called for an escalation on all fronts and popular resistance in an attempt to stop U.S. President Donald Trump's peace proposal. Hard days are ahead of us, said Abbas. We must be prepared to face the results of the Palestinian objection to Trump's peace plan, be as they may. It goes on to say, we need to escalate popular resistance on all fronts and recruit the young. Not abandon the streets, Abbas said. We will stand united in the coming days and examine the position of Hamas and Islamic Jihad, which are those terrorists that Donald Trump just got through talking about. In the coming days, we will be in a state of emergency and we will invite everyone to join us. We need them all. Abbas has announced during the meeting that he had informed Egypt that the Palestinian Authority would allow its citizens to express their objection to the so-called deal of a century. So as it stands right now, it certainly looks like there's going to be trouble brewing rather than an agreement on a century peace deal. And this is why I lean on the scriptures, because I can't tell exactly when it's going to happen. All I know is the prophet said that when they call for peace and safety, destruction's going to come. Now, assuredly, if Abbas holds on to what he is saying here and doesn't get involved and doesn't want any of this peace process, there's going to be trouble, and it would lead to this sudden destruction that Paul the Apostle warns to us in Thessalonians. Let's go on. Now, very briefly, there was another news article that came out just today as a result of what Trump is doing. It says, rioters burn pictures of Trump, call him a dog in Ramallah. So they're already rioting. And the indication is, as I just got through saying, it looks like, at this point, there could be war brewing over this supposedly deal of the century, but that remains to be seen.
Under this vision, Jerusalem will remain Israel's undivided, very important, undivided capital. But that's no big deal, because I've already done that for you, right? We've already done that, but that's okay. It's going to remain that way. And the United States will recognize Israeli sovereignty over the territory that my vision provides to be part of the state of Israel. Very important. And crucially, the proposed transition to a two-state solution will present no incremental security risk to the state of Israel whatsoever. We will not allow a return to the days of bloodshed, bus bombings, nightclub attacks, and relentless terror. It won't be allowed. Peace requires compromise, but we will never ask Israel to compromise its security.
So the question is, if they're not going to allow the terrorists to continue to do what they have been doing for so many years, and Abbas doesn't want to transform this deal of a century into reality, then somebody is going to have to force these terrorists to stop. And the only way that that could be done is through conflict or sudden destruction, as we see in that scripture.
As everyone knows, I have done a lot for Israel, moving the United States Embassy to Jerusalem, recognizing the Golan Heights, and frankly, perhaps most importantly, getting out of the terrible Iran nuclear deal. Therefore, it is only reasonable that I have to do a lot for the Palestinians, or it just wouldn't be fair. Now, don't clap for that, okay? But it's true. It wouldn't be fair. I want this deal to be a great deal for the Palestinians. It has to be. Today's agreement is a historic opportunity for the Palestinians to finally achieve an independent state of their very own. After 70 years of little progress, this could be the last opportunity they will ever have, and last for a lot of reasons. We'll never have a team like we have right now. We have a team of people that love the United States, and they love Israel, and they're very smart and very, very committed, from your ambassador, David Friedman. And they're all great deal makers, and they also understand the other side, and they want the other side to do well, because that's the sign of a great deal, and they understand that. And I just appreciate all of the hard work you put in, and so many of your other friends, and of course our great Secretary of State, Mike Pompeo. Oh, that's impressive. Well, the Palestinian people have grown distrustful after years of unfulfilled promises, so true. Yet I know they are ready to escape their tragic past and realize a great destiny. But we must break free of yesterday's failed approaches. This map will more than double the Palestinian territory and provide a Palestinian capital in eastern Jerusalem, where America will proudly open an embassy. No Palestinians or Israelis will be uprooted from their homes. Israel will work closely with a wonderful person, a wonderful man, the King of Jordan, to ensure that the status quo of the Temple Mount is preserved and strong measures are taken to ensure that all Muslims who wish to visit peacefully and pray at the Al-Aqsa Mosque will be able to do so. This is a major statement. This is a major important
I stopped the tape here because the issue about the Temple Mount in East Jerusalem is a very, very strong issue when it comes to the Palestinians and the Israelis. So if Donald Trump is saying that this area is sovereign to Israel, that would be a huge objection to the Palestinians. However, he is saying that the status quo at this Temple Mount area isn't going to change. In other words, the Muslims can do what they have been doing, going up and pray and doing their services and whatnot without being hindered. Now, what's interesting about this is, a couple days ago, I reported on January the 27th, 2020, that the Sanhedrin Assembly on the Third Temple brings representatives from Sons of Ishmael. And in this article, the Sanhedrin is talking about actually sharing and coming together with their Muslim brothers on the Temple Mount. Listen to this. It says the entire area of the Temple Mount is known as al-Sharif, the holy and noble site. But a change came about after the Six-Day War when some Jewish leaders began calling for the establishment of a synagogue on the Mount. And of course, in 1967, during that war, the Temple Mount fell back in the hands of the Israelis for the first time in almost 2,000 years, which fulfilled prophecy. Let me go on. It was felt that the Muslims would not object since the Al-Aqsa was on the southern edge of the compound and the synagogue would be nearby. This is very interesting because we're told in the scripture, in the book of Revelation, don't measure the outer court because it's given to the Gentiles. So there's a possibility that they could build the holy temple, the third temple, on this site, meaning the Jews would be able to go up and share. As the Muslims go up to worship their God Allah, the Jews would be able to go up and worship Jehovah in the temple that they're going to be rebuilding. It goes on to say, the Muslims decided to announce that the Al-Aqsa mentioned in the Quran refers not only to the mosque on the southern end of the compound, but is the name of the entire Temple Mount area, abandoning the original name Al-Har al-Sharif, rather than use the dubious claim as a battle cry to expel the Muslims. Dr. Kadar suggested that the commonality of Jerusalem could serve as a bond to bring together all the three Arabic religions, Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. He emphasized that the three religions shared common interests. So what's so interesting about this is the Jews want to talk to the Muslims to share this area in a common goal to bring three different religions together, major religions together, which we know is going to happen in the last days because Jesus tells us that there's going to be a false one world religion that's going to be coming together. And I've shared many articles about how the Pope is bringing Islam together and the Jews together in one religion, along with many other religions, forming this one world religion that will be opposing the true doctrine of Jesus Christ. That's what we know. So this is the reason why Donald Trump mentioned the Temple Mount, because it has in the past stopped other peace plans. But to ensure the Muslims that nothing will change, that you still can go up and pray at this Dome of the Rock area on the Temple Mount, assures them nothing will change. The status quo will remain. But at the same time, the Jews want to go up and pray, and they're working on coming together to try to establish the rights to build their third temple on this Temple Mount. Unity, in other words.
At the same time, our vision will deliver massive commercial investment of $50 billion into the new Palestinian state. You have many, many countries that want to partake in this, and many of them are surrounding. They all want this to happen. Virtually every one of them want this to happen, and I think maybe you know that very well. You're going to have tremendous support from your neighbors and beyond your neighbors. Over the next 10 years, if executed well, 1 million great new Palestinian jobs will be created. Their poverty rate will be cut in half, and their poverty rate is unacceptable now and only getting worse. Their GDP will double and triple, and much needed hope, joy, opportunity, and prosperity will finally arrive for the Palestinian people. Our vision will end the cycle of Palestinian dependency upon charity and foreign aid. They will be doing phenomenally all by themselves. They are very, very capable people. And we will help by empowering the Palestinians to thrive on their own. Palestinians will be able to seize the new future with dignity, self-sufficiency, and national pride. To ensure a successful Palestinian state, we are asking the Palestinians to meet the challenges of peaceful coexistence. This includes adopting basic laws enshrining human rights, protecting against financial and political corruption, stopping the malign activities of Hamas, Islamic Jihad, and other enemies of peace, ending the incitement of hatred against Israel, so important, and permanently halting the financial compensation to terrorists. And perhaps most importantly, my vision gives the Palestinians the time needed to rise up and meet the challenges of statehood. I sent a letter today to President Abbas. I explained to him that the territory allocated for his new state will remain open and undeveloped for a period of 4 years.
Now, in many of my videos, I talk about this Daniel 9:27 scripture, where we are given a time period of 7 years when the Antichrist will confirm a covenant with many for 7 years. Now, the only time period in this whole deal of a century is a period of 4 years that you just heard the president talk about. So in my belief, since it doesn't really specify a time period of 7 years, this cannot be the fulfillment of Daniel 9:27, because that's very specific in prophecy, that time period. So this is why I personally believe that when the time comes when they're going to confirm a covenant, the Antichrist will be here, and I think it will come after there's war from a failed peace process, where they try to come together, and this time, where the Antichrist is already on the scene, and he confirms a covenant that was made. Let's go on.
During this time, Palestinians can use all appropriate deliberation to study the deal, negotiate with Israel, achieve the criteria for statehood, and become a truly independent and wonderful state. President Abbas, I want you to know that if you choose the path to peace, America and many other countries we will be there. We will be there to help you in so many different ways, and we will be there every step of the way. We will be there. In other words, for the first time in many, many decades, I can say it will work. It's going to work. If they do this, it will work. Your response to this historic opportunity will show the world to what extent you are ready to lead the Palestinian people to statehood. The Middle East is changing rapidly. On my first trip aboard as president, I traveled to Saudi Arabia to discuss our shared priorities with the 54 leaders of the Muslim and Arab countries. I made clear that all civilized nations share the same goals, stamping out extremism, creating opportunity for the region's youth, and we have to take care of the region's youth. The region's youth is growing up with no hope. We have to take care of the region's youth and existing in harmony with one's neighbors. Since that time, immense progress has been made. A growing number of nations have taken strong stands against terrorism and radicalization. You see it. Thanks to the courage of U.S. forces, the ISIS territorial caliphate, 100%, not 95%, not 99 or any other percent, 100% of the caliphate, ISIS, is destroyed, and its savage leader, al-Baghdadi, is now dead. Mark, that kid. Great people. These are great people. They work so hard, and they love this country. The Iranian regime is isolated and weakened greatly. We eliminated Qasem Soleimani, the world's top terrorist. And as you know, he was with the head of Hezbollah. I don't think they were up to anything good. I don't think so. He ran an organization called Jerusalem Liberation Forces and used his hatred, total severe hatred of Israel, as a rallying cry to divert attention from the incompetence and shortcomings of his government. He falsely promoted the sinister notion that a free Jerusalem, we must really be at war with Israel. So to have it free, we have to be at war with Israel. And he said it very, very powerfully. In fact, it's been in this false war that Israel, really, the enemies of peace, have used it. They just used it as an excuse to divide and totally oppress the Middle East. In truth, Jerusalem is liberated. Jerusalem is a safe, open, democratic city that welcomes people of all faiths and all places. It is time for the Muslim world to fix the mistake it made in 1948 when it chose to attack instead of recognize the new state of Israel. It's time. Since then, the amount of needless bloodshed and all squandered opportunities, so many squandered opportunities in the name of senseless causes is beyond measure. The Palestinians have been the primary pawn in this regional adventurism, and it's time for this sad chapter in history to end quickly, end now. It's never too late for courageous leaders to set a new course, to pursue what is right, to change the future only for the better. America is prepared to work with all parties on our vision. So many other countries are willing, ready, and able to work with us. I've spoken to many of them. I cannot believe the amount of support this morning has. I cannot believe it. I have been called by leaders, Boris called, so many called, and they're all saying whatever we can do to help. They all want to see it happen. But America cannot care more about peace than the stakeholders in the region. There are many Muslims who never visited Al-Aqsa, and many Christians and Jews who never visited the holy sites in the West Bank described so vividly in the Bible. My vision will change that. Our majestic biblical heritage will be able to live, breathe, and flourish in modern times. All humanity should be able to enjoy the glories of the Holy Land. This part of the world is forever connected to the human soul and the human spirit. These ancient lands should not be symbols of conflict, but eternal symbols of peace. Thank you again for all of the work you've all done and all of these incredible honored guests for being here. And in particular, I want to thank Prime Minister Netanyahu. I also want to thank Oman, Bahrain, and the United Arab Emirates for the incredible work they've done helping us with so much and sending their ambassadors to be with us today. Thank you. Thank you very much. Please give our regards. America's partnerships in the region have never been greater, and our alliance with the State of Israel has never, ever been stronger than it is today. Together we can bring about a new dawn in the Middle East. And I would now, again, just like to thank everybody and a very special group of people, an incredible group of people. So many have been with us on this journey right from the beginning, and we're getting there. They say it's the toughest deal ever to make. In business, when I have a tough deal, people would say this is tougher than the Israelis and the Palestinians. They used it as an excuse, meaning that was always the standard. Actually, there's nothing tougher than this one, but we have to get it done. We have an obligation to humanity to get it done. So I would now like to introduce the Prime Minister of Israel, who's worked so hard on this, Benjamin Netanyahu. Thank you.
In the Middle East, we drink water. President Trump, Donald, I'm honored to be here today, along with my wife Sarah, Minister Yaniv Levin, Ambassador Ron Dermer. Ron, thank you for everything you've been doing. National Security Advisor Meir Ben Shabbat, thank you too, Mayor. And our entire delegation. We are honored to be here with you, Mr. President, with Secretary of State Mike Pompeo. We applaud you, Mike. Secretary of the Treasury Steve Mnuchin, National Security Advisor Robert O'Brien, America's UN Ambassador Kelly Craft, Jared Kushner and Ivanka, it's good to see you. It's good to see the unfailingly energetic and optimistic Ambassador David Friedman, Jason Greenblatt, and the rest of your exceptional peace band, Mr. President. It's good to be here with the other distinguished ladies and gentlemen of your administration, with Senator ambassadors of the United Arab Emirates, Bahrain, and Oman, what a pleasure to see you here, and what a sign it portends. I was going to say of the future, what a sign it portends of the present. To all of you and to the many other distinguished guests who are here today, this is a historic day, and it recalls another historic day. We remember May 14th, 1948, because on that day, President Truman became the first world leader to recognize the State of Israel after our first Prime Minister, David Ben-Gurion, declared our independence. That day chartered a brilliant future. Mr. President, I believe that down the decades, and perhaps down the centuries, we will also remember January 28th, 2020, because on this day, you became the first world leader to recognize Israel's sovereignty over areas in Judea and Samaria that are vital to our security and central to our heritage. And on this day, you too have charted a brilliant future for Israelis, Palestinians, and the region by presenting a realistic path to a durable peace. Since the moment of its birth, Israel has yearned for peace with our Palestinian neighbors and peace with the broader Arab world. For decades, that peace has proved elusive, despite so many well-intentioned plans. One after the other, they failed. Why did they fail? They failed because they did not strike the right balance between Israel's vital security and national interests and the Palestinians' aspirations for self-determination. Too many plans tried to pressure Israel to withdraw from vital territory like the Jordan Valley. But you, Mr. President, you recognize that Israel must have sovereignty in the Jordan Valley and other strategic areas of Judea and Samaria. Rather than pay easy lip service to Israel's security and simply shut your eyes, hope for the best, you recognize that Israel must have sovereignty in places that enable Israel to defend itself by itself. For too long, far too long, the very heart of the land of Israel, where our patriarchs prayed, our prophets preached, and our kings ruled, has been outrageously branded as illegally occupied territory. Well, today, Mr. President, you are puncturing this big lie. You are recognizing Israel's sovereignty over all the Jewish communities in Judea and Samaria, large and small alike. These, as the distinguished pastors who are here know very well, these are places inscribed in the pages of the Bible. These are places carved into the bedrock of our common civilization. The sacred tomb in Hebron, where the fathers and mothers of the Jewish people are buried. Bethel, where Jacob dreamed of a ladder ascending to the heavens. Shiloh, where the Ark of the Covenant that held the Ten Commandments for centuries. That's what happened in Shiloh. Thanks to you, Mr. President, these areas and so many others that for millennia have been etched in the soul of the Jewish people and inspired the imaginations of millions of people around the world and across the world. These areas will now be recognized by the United States as a permanent part of the Jewish state. Mr. President, because of this historic recognition, and because I believe your peace plan strikes the right balance where other plans have failed, I've agreed to negotiate peace with the Palestinians on the basis of your peace plan. It's a great plan for Israel. It's a great plan for peace. Frankly, Mr. President, given all that you've already done for Israel, I'm not surprised. You have been the greatest friend that Israel has ever had in the White House. Frankly, though we've had some great, outstanding friends in these homes, it's not even close. Your historic decisions to recognize Jerusalem as Israel's capital, to recognize Israel's sovereignty over the Golan Heights, to reaffirm Israel's legal claims in Judea and Samaria, to stand up to Iran, to pull out of that dangerous Iran deal, to confront is not the word, to eliminate Qasem Soleimani, to support and encourage unbelievable cooperation between Israel and the United States in the military and strategic and intelligence fields. All this bear testament to the friendship and depth of your leadership and commitment to Israel. From our very first meeting here in the White House 3 years ago, you repeatedly made clear your commitment to help Israel achieve peace with the Palestinians and peace with the rest of the Arab world. Mr. President, I share that commitment, and I look forward to working with you to achieve a peace that will protect Israel's security, provide the Palestinians with dignity and their own national life, and improve Israel's relations with the Arab world. Your peace plan advances all these goals. First, it addresses the root cause of the conflict, by insisting that the Palestinians will finally have to recognize Israel as the Jewish state. Second, it stipulates that Israel will retain security control in the entire area west of the Jordan River, thereby giving Israel a permanent eastern border to defend ourselves across our longest border. This is something we've longed to have. We now have such a recognized boundary. Third, your plan calls for Hamas to be disarmed and for Gaza to be demilitarized. Fourth, it makes clear that the Palestinian refugee problem must be solved outside the state of Israel. Fifth, it calls for our ancient capital, Jerusalem, to remain united under Israel's sovereignty. It, of course, ensures that religious sites remain accessible to all faiths, and it maintains the status quo on the Temple Mount. Sixth, your plan does not uproot anyone from their homes, Israelis and Palestinians alike. Instead, it proposes innovative solutions whereby Israelis will be connected to Israel and whereby Palestinians will also be connected to one another. this is, it helps if you have real estate. They can come up with things normal human beings don't think about. And they have. Mr. President, Israel wants the Palestinians to have a better life. We want them to have a future of national dignity, prosperity, and hope. Your peace plan offers the Palestinians such a future. Your peace plan offers the Palestinians a pathway to a future state. I know that it may take them a very long time to reach the end of that path. It may even take them a very long time to get to the beginning of that path. But if the Palestinians are genuinely prepared to take that path, if they're genuinely prepared to make peace with the Jewish state, and if they agree to abide by all the conditions you have put forward in your plan, Israel will be there. Israel will be prepared to negotiate peace right away. Regardless of the Palestinian decision, Israel will preserve the path of peace in the coming years. For at least 4 years, Israel will maintain the status quo in areas that your plan does not designate as being part of Israel in the future. At the same time, Israel will apply its laws to the Jordan Valley, to all the Jewish communities in Judea and Samaria, and to other areas that your plan designates as part of Israel, and which the United States has agreed to recognize as part of Israel. I like that. This decision will protect Israel's security, ensure Israel's national interest, and leave open the possibility of a political settlement with the Palestinians in the coming years. Mr. President, I hope the Palestinians embrace your vision of peace. Embrace the plan that you, the team, and us work so hard to achieve. I hope that they seize the opportunity offered by your sweeping economic plan. I read it. It takes enormous talent to inject $50 billion worth of investment. I know what that does to an economy. I know what it will do to Palestinian lives. I know what it will do to the youth of the region. I hope that the Palestinians embrace this and build with Israel a future of prosperity and peace. I also hope that our other Arab neighbors embrace your vision and forge a path of reconciliation with Israel that can create for all of us a brilliant future. Mr. President, I want to congratulate your fantastic team, Ms. Northern, your fantastic peace team, for all their work. Jason Greenblatt. Thank you, Jason, for the terrific job you did as America's peace envoy for nearly 3 years. Avi Berkowitz, thank you for stepping out. Thank you, Avi, for stepping out from your important behind-the-scenes role and ably working in those past few months to get this plan done. Ambassador David Friedman, thank you, David. Thank you for your essential contribution to this effort and for the terrific job you do every day to strengthen the great alliance between Israel and America. And Jared Kushner, without your wisdom, your persistence, your resolve, this day would have never come. I know how much the Jewish future means to you and to your family. Well, Jared, today you have helped secure that future. The Jewish state owes you, and it owes President Trump, an eternal debt of gratitude. Mr. President, on that historic day of May 14th, 1948, both David Ben-Gurion and President Truman had a fateful decision to make. Many argued that Ben-Gurion should not declare Israel's independence. Many argued that President Truman should not recognize the Jewish state. But both leaders understood the magnitude of the hour. They seized the moment and they changed history. Like you, Mr. President, I understand the magnitude of this moment. With you, Mr. President, I'm prepared to seize the moment and change history. I know that there'll be opposition. There's always opposition. I know there'll be many obstacles along the way, much criticism. But we have an old Jewish saying, if not now, when? And if not us, who? Im lo achshav, matai, im lo anachnu, as me. Mr. President, your deal of the century is the opportunity of the century. And rest assured, Israel will not miss this opportunity. Mr. President Donald, Israel is blessed to have your friendship and your powerful leadership. And Israel is blessed to have the friendship of the greatest power on earth, the United States of America. May God bless America. May God bless Israel. And may God bless us all with security, prosperity, and peace. Thank you.
So there you have it. News connecting Bible prophecy with current events. And what we'll have to see now is what the Palestinians do. What do the Muslims, do they reject it? Do they riot? Does it lead to the conflict of sudden destruction as we see from Thessalonians? Only God knows at this point, but one thing is for sure. Jesus Christ said, in the last days, keep on the watch. And when he gives us very specific information about Israel calling for peace and safety and sudden destruction, then when you start hearing these things, you should definitely be keeping on the watch, and that's what I do here at my YouTube channel and at my prophecy website. Now, along with this news today, many of you who've been watching my prophecy sites notice that I put up red flags about you'll see great earthquakes coming. Well, obviously that's a prophecy from Jesus Christ. I'm just repeating what Jesus Christ said, that this prophecy would be among all the rest of the last day prophecies seen all at the same time in one generation, and that would be the generation who saw the rebirth of Israel, of, guess what, you're part of. So today another major earthquake, 7.7 magnitude earthquake, strikes between Jamaica and Cuba. We don't know any damage report at this time, but this is a major earthquake, one of those great earthquakes Jesus prophesied about in Matthew chapter 24. There's going to be a lot of signs taking place, I believe, in 2020. And I'm going to keep you up to date as these signs break, as they connect to Bible prophecy and current events. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel right along with me as we watch the signs that show us we need to get ready to see the second coming of the Lord Jesus Christ as promised. At this time, I would like to bring up something that may be in importance to many people who are watching this YouTube video today. For those of you who are familiar with the Bible, and you would like to write up some news connecting Bible prophecy with current events, if you're interested in having your work put up at my sites, at my Bible prophecy site, I offer you a challenge. Find some news, current news, that you know connects Bible prophecy with that current news and write up an article specifically on that one event. Email me that report. I'll read it over. And if it meets our requirements to make sure that what you're saying is factual and relates to Bible prophecy, I'll put that article up at my site. This is a challenge for anyone who loves the Lord and wants to get involved in spreading the last day signs as Jesus Christ told us to watch for. You can email me your report at fjdimora@gmail.com. God bless.